Welcome to the video. Today is an exciting one. I have a package to unbox, which has been sent to me by a company called Viltrox. Viltrox make camera lenses and camera gear. Personally, I have no experience of using their stuff. I have watched a few reviews and I've been aware of them in the outskirts of my research on lenses and things. They tend to make more budget friendly lenses, but from my understanding, I think they do a pretty good job for the price point. So I'm really intrigued to see what this is like. So what am I talking about? They today have sent me their new 40mm 2.5 lens, which is releasing today at the time of this recording. Now, if you've watched this channel before, you'll know that my Sony 40mm 2.5 is my absolute go-to lens. It's my favorite. It has been probably for the past year or so. It's my kind of everyday lens, my street photography lens. It's so compact, small, beautifully made, and I love the image quality. So we will be unboxing this, comparing the two, and I'll just be sharing my thoughts as well as taking it out for a little test and grabbing some photos to show you. Full disclaimer, as I already mentioned, Viltrox have sent me this lens free of charge so that I can try it and test it and give my honest opinion of it. They haven't paid me to make this video and they won't review the video before it goes live, so I can say whatever I would like. There is a link down below if you want to buy it, and I do get a small kickback off that, and there is a code which I'll pop here and down below, which if you do want to purchase you can put in at the checkout to get a small discount. But all of these thoughts are just my own opinions and my initial impressions of this lens. So I guess all that's left to do is unbox it and I can tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, so here we have it. This is the Viltrox 40mm 2.5 Compact Prime. Initial impressions are pretty good. The unboxing was really nice, super clean, minimal packaging. You get a little felt lens pouch in there, which is nice. A nice little touch to store the lens in. Instruction manual, cap, back cap, and a lens hood. Personally, I'll place that to the side as I'm not a massive fan of them, but it is there if you so wish. And the lens itself, I mean, I'm impressed with the build quality, which is my kind of initial inspection and opinion on it. Perhaps I did it a little bit of a disservice in prejudging it and thinking it was not going to be quite so nice, but it actually feels pretty good. It's got a nice kind of weight to it. It doesn't feel too light and airy, which sometimes you do find with slightly cheaper lenses. And it is pretty simple, but I would imagine it hopefully will be a good lens at a good price point, which gets me into the specs of this lens, and I'm going to compare them directly to the Sony because I have both here. Now, the biggest thing to me is going to be the price point because they are vastly different. This Sony comes in at $807 US, whereas the Viltrox is RRP'd at $168. So, I mean, if budget is your main priority, this is going to be your go-to lens. And as I've already mentioned on initial inspection, I think the build quality and the fit of it is adequate. I mean, I think it's better than $168, to be honest. Comparably, the Sony is much nicer, as you might well expect. The build quality and the materials used in the Sony are far more premium. They are made of metal. This is more made of plastic, and you can feel that instantly. But if you can get over that for that bigger price difference, you might want to go for the Viltrox. A couple of other stats that I thought might be of interest. There are different filter thread sizes on this. So the Viltrox itself is a 52 and the Sony is a 49. Worth noting if you have any filters for the front end of the lens. The weight is different. The Sony is 173 grams, the Viltrox is 167. Again, reflective of the materials used in the lenses. And other than that, aperture wise, they both, as I say, are 40mm 2.5 lenses at the low end. On the high end, the Sony goes up to a 22, f22, and the Viltrox only goes up to f16. So worth considering if that matters to you. Personally, I think it probably wouldn't matter too much to me. I don't tend to shoot at f22 that often, but worth noting. On the other hand, there are a few features that the Sony has that the Viltrox just doesn't. In design, it is very minimal. You literally have the lens, the front element, and just one ring here, which is your focus ring. That is pretty much it. Comparably, on the Sony, you have quite a few customizable buttons and dials on the lens itself. As I already mentioned, it's slightly heavier with a slightly higher premium build quality, and Sony do state that it has some kind of weather sealing in it. These G lenses are not as well weather sealed as the GM lenses, but they do have a certain amount. I couldn't find much on that on the Viltrox, so I can't really comment. I would err on the side of caution in getting this one particularly wet. Not that I tried to get my lenses wet anyway. The additional features on this are in hard switches on the lens barrel itself. So firstly, you obviously have your focus ring, as you do on the Viltrox. In addition to that, you have an aperture ring, which I love using. You can change through your apertures on the lens manually. You have the option with a button here to click that on or click that off. So if you're shooting video, you can have it smooth, or photo, you can have it clicked, or whichever your preference is. In addition to that, you have a hard button which is AF/MF, so you can toggle that on and off, and you have a customizable button on the side of the barrel itself, which I personally use quite a lot, and I set it within my camera to switch between APS-C and full frame mode, because that is something I do quite often. Just to note, if you are using this on a full frame camera, you can use it obviously at its intended 40mm, but if you crop into APS-C mode, you're getting around 60mm, which is pretty nice. So it gives you a good versatility between the two. And for me, it's a nice everyday focal length. It's kind of close to your traditional 35, but I do like to shoot slightly tighter, so the 40 is really nice. And of course, if you switch into APS-C mode, you get that even extra focal distance. So that pretty much is the comparison between the two lenses. I guess all that's left to do is to go and shoot with the Viltrox. I've shot extensively with the 40mm of the Sony, and I know that the quality is really good, and I'm really happy with it. So what I'm going to do is take this lens out and give it a bit of a whirl. I'll try and take some different style photos to give you some good examples of the image quality, and I'll check back in with my thoughts on that once I have used it for a little while over the next few days. So stay tuned for that. I will be back. So I've been shooting with the Viltrox 42.5 for the past few days now as my daily carry lens. I've been overlaying some of the images throughout this video, so I hope that you found them useful, and it gives you a good insight into what kind of image quality you can get from this lens. I'm just out here this evening to capture a few last minute shots for this video, predominantly to compare it directly with the Sony 40mm, particularly to check edge sharpness. So I've been taking the same shot on each lens, and I have to be honest, there isn't a huge amount in it. I do think that the Sony pips it and takes the win, as you might well expect. I am no pixel peeper. This is not that kind of video. I'm not really getting into the minutiae and the tech details of this lens. It's fairly subjective, but when I have a look in the corners and the edges in the details, very slightly sharper is the Sony, and that's throughout different f-stops, but it isn't drastically different. One other thing that I did notice when shooting with them directly side by side is that the Sony is very slightly quicker, I feel, to latch on to the autofocus. I'm not talking about fast moving subjects or objects, because I don't do that kind of shooting, but just in terms of latching onto something, I do feel it was a little bit snappier than the Viltrox, so worth noting. But overall this week I've been so impressed. I've pulled these images into my Lightroom, given them a little edit, and just had a little bit of a play around with them, as I would do with my Sony images. And I have to be honest, if you did a blind test on me, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. I'm just looking for a nice, crisp, clean image with nice colours, and that really is what I want from a lens, especially kind of my day-to-day walk-around lens, my street photography lens. And this really did give me that. I knew that I was shooting on my Viltrox, but sometimes I kind of did forget, especially when I got into my editing, and I was really happy with the results. I've posted some of them on my Instagram. I certainly did not think, wow, that is terrible quality, because I'm using such a cheap lens compared to my Sony. Where the Viltrox did slightly fall down and my Sony was more superior was in terms of how it felt, usability, and just aesthetics and tactile sensations. As I've already mentioned earlier in the video, the Sony's packed with a load of premium features. It's built with nice materials. It's metal, it's slightly heavier, it's better weighted, and it's got all of those function buttons on the barrel, which I'm very accustomed to using. And I did miss my aperture ring. I really have got used to using that, as well as the custom button on the barrel, which switches me between full frame and APS-C mode. However, when using the Viltrox, I kind of got used to it pretty quickly, and I've previously used other lenses that don't have those either. You obviously have that ability to adjust settings on your camera itself, but it does feel a little bit nicer. However, saying all of this, the price point is absolutely vastly different. And to be honest with you, for $168, I really don't think you could go too far wrong with the Viltrox. It will give you really nice images for a fraction of the price of the Sony. And if you can get over not having those custom buttons and it feeling slightly less premium, it might be well worth considering, especially if you just want to get started. Certainly piqued my attention to the Viltrox range. I will be checking them out because I've had my eye on a 20mm for quite some time now. They're super expensive and the Sony's quite big and heavy, but I have spotted Viltrox do a 22.8. So if you have any experience with any of their other lenses, particularly the 20, I'd love to hear it. So drop me a comment down below. And if you do have any questions about the 40, also please drop them down below. I really love a 40mm lens, as you probably already realise. It's not too wide, it's not too tight, it's just a lovely lens to walk around with, and super light and convenient. So thank you for watching. I hope you made it this far, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.